This is A New Angle, a show about cool people doing awesome things in and around Montana. I'm your host, Justin Angle. This show is supported by First Security Bank, Blackfoot Communications, and the University of Montana College of Business. Hey folks, welcome back, and thanks for tuning in. Today is July 4th, a great opportunity for every American to reflect on what it means to be a part of this country. So in that spirit, we bring you a conversation with Anne Fogel of Missoula, Montana. Since 2021, Anne's brother Marc Fogel, a history teacher, has been imprisoned in a Russian labor camp for trying to enter the country with 14 grams of medical cannabis.
There's no degree to prepare for this.
Yeah.
It's just been a constant learning curve.
Yeah.
And with no, you don't ever feel like you're catching up or mastering anything. There is just, of course, Russia's now at war. There's just so much cloak and dagger, mirrors.
Mm-hmm.
Like it is by far the most complex thing that I have ever had a bit of an inside view into.
It's now been over 1,000 days, and Marc's family and friends continue to advocate for his release. Anne, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, it's nice to be here. Thank you.
So tell us, where did you grow up, and what did your parents do?
I grew up to the north of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in kind of a rural area. My father worked for the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation. He was the first of his generation to go to college.
Okay.
And he came from a big family, and my mother also came from immigrant stock. She was the first generation here.
Mm-hmm. And where did her parents immigrate from?
Immigrated from Italy.
Okay.
Big family, big, amazing family, actually.
And how did you land in Missoula?
I had been traveling through Africa for some time. I worked at the University of Cape Town, and then I hitchhiked around southern Africa.
Okay.
And when I got back to the United States, I went back to college to pick up a couple credits that I needed to qualify for a master's degree. And I met a woman there who said, you know what? I'm going to drive out to Montana this summer, and I'll pay your way if you help me with my kids.
Okay.
So we got in a mom minivan with 3 crazy kids, and we drove out here, and then I didn't leave. So
we are here today to talk about your brother, Marc.
Mm-hmm.
Before we get into the details of his case, just talk about Marc a little bit. Introduce us to him.
I think our immigrant grandparents had we got some kind of recessive gene from them, because I did a lot of traveling, and my brother quadrupled that.
Sure.
He did his student teaching in London and then went to Guadalajara. From Guadalajara, he went to Muscat, Oman. From Muscat, Oman, he went to Medellin, Colombia. Then they came back to the United States for a little while. Then they were in Venezuela. And then they were in Russia last, all the while teaching history.
Okay, and mostly to children of diplomats, or what?
Diplomats, expat communities. There are always a lot of foreigners in other countries, and certainly a lot of Americans in other countries. And he was always involved.
Sure. So you mentioned the travel bug. What about this lifestyle and this life's work do you think fed him?
I think that he had the perfect marriage of things that he was passionate about and something that could keep him employed and happy. Mm-hmm. So with the population, the demographic of his students, they were coming from all over the world, and it allowed him to always see political issues from just a multitude of perspectives. Yeah. And I think he loved that. I think he loves the nuance and the complexity of perspective in history.
Yeah. Well, nuance and complexity are something we're going to get into today.
Right.
It might be an appropriate launching point into talking about his case. So he is detained in a Russian prison. Talk about the circumstances of his arrest.
Growing up outside of Pittsburgh, in the 70s, Pee Wee football was a big deal.
Yeah.
He's 63, it fits. We came from a pretty athletic family.
The Pittsburgh Steelers were probably heroes.
Was major deal.
Yeah.
When Mark was, 12, he was playing Pee Wee football, and he had the ball. The play was finished, though. He came up with the ball, and he was kneeling, like in church kneeling, high on his knees. And as it turns out, the neighbor kid was on the opposing team.
Yep.
And hit him from the front and just bent him over backward.
Wow.
And that was kind of the beginning of it. Mark has had 3 failed back surgeries with fusions. He has a new hip, rotator cuff surgery, including knee issues, knee surgeries as well. When your body gets out of alignment, things start to go awry.
Yeah, lifelong kind of experience with pain.
Lifelong experience with pain, and the moment you're compensating for one thing, it's affecting another thing, and things went awry in his body. Having said that, he has an aversion to opiates, and of course that's from the 90s on, that's what they were prescribing, and that was not working for him.
Sure.
So he, thank God, didn't take them, didn't become addicted, didn't end up in a ditch.
Yeah, that's a whole nother door
that
life could have presented.
Yes, yeah. He did find pain relief in marijuana, which is another controversial topic, of course, because they have never been able to do the proper testing.
Right.
Although they're getting to it now, and they're realizing, this can be effective. So it allowed him to live his life. It allowed him to teach and do to keep going.
Sure.
He doesn't ever get past his chronic pain. It's a 24-hour day job for him.
Yeah.
It's when he's not in prison, it's a regular massage therapy, regular acupuncture, stretching, you name it.
Sure.
It's a full complex job that he has to do.
So it's an active lifestyle around pain management.
I just can't even imagine.
Yeah.
And he is not ever going to talk about it because now the phone calls that he makes get sent from the penal colony in Rybinsk to the U.S. Embassy in Moscow, and then they get routed to us. So that's so everyone listens, and he's hesitant to complain.
Certainly. Yeah.
And to really give us any real picture of what his life is.
So he was arrested trying to enter Russia for his last year of teaching, his last season of teaching, and carrying a small amount of medical cannabis.
He was carrying 14 grams of medical cannabis with his medical marijuana card, which I think he really believed the Russian government would take for what it was.
Had he done this before, or was this a first, or do we not know?
We'd have no idea.
Sure.
And he has no way to answer that question or defend himself for that.
Oh, there was an informant in the arrest, right?
There was an informant in the arrest, so he was. They were expecting him.
Yes.
And he was immediately whisked off to the detention facility in the Sheremetyevo airport, and then he was in the pre-trial CIZO system. CIZO. It's where Evan Gershkovich is now.
Okay. Journalist.
Yeah. So That's usually around Moscow, and I think there is no phone conversations during that time. So we went almost an entire year without hearing his voice.
How did you learn of his detainment?
His wife, Jane, called me.
Okay.
And then, they left his computer with him at the airport. So we were texting back and forth at that point.
Okay.
And, he was giving instruction.
And gosh, I mean, that must have sent you and your family and friends into a bit of a frenzy trying to understand not only the threat that he was facing, but also get your head around whatever sort of process there is to engage in at this point.
There's no degree to prepare for this.
Yeah.
It's just been a constant learning curve.
Yeah.
And with no, you don't ever feel like you're catching up or mastering anything. There is just, of course, Russia's now at war. There's just so much cloak and dagger, mirrors.
Mm-hmm.
Like it is by far the most complex thing that I have ever had a bit of an inside view into.
So he is arrested for this possession offense, and then at some point, subsequent sentenced to 14 years in prison.
Yes.
Do you have any sense before that sentence what a normal sentence? Is there such thing as a normal sentence for this type of offense in Russia?
They say that there isn't, but certainly nothing more than 3 years.
Okay.
Now, I know some of the people that he's in there with who are murderers and large-scale...
Hard criminals.
Heroin traffickers.
Yeah.
Got less time than he did.
Wow.
Which brings us to the Levinson Act.
Yeah. Just one more question about his imprisonment. Like, can you... I know he can't really share because he's being listened to, but what's your understanding of the conditions under which he's being held?
He's in a barracks with 75 other men.
Okay.
There's a crazy variety of people that he's with. Some are former oligarchs.
So let's talk about the Levinson Act. There is a provision in this piece of legislation that describes a thing called wrongful detainment.
Yes.
Is that probably the best place to start?
There are 11 criteria for this.
For wrongful detainment.
For wrongful detainment.
Okay.
Of which Mark hits easily 6 and potentially 8.
Okay. And is the law that you have to hit all 11, or is it some sort of discretionary?
You have to hit 1.
1 of 11. Okay.
And
he hits maybe 8.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you just we don't need to go through the tick list, but what are some of the major things that constitute wrongful detainment?
Everything from, was there a political reason that they were detained?
Okay, so political motivation is one.
Political motivation. Did they get a fair trial?
Due process.
Was the sentence commensurate with the crime?
Sure. Okay, so we certainly see that there's 3 boxes already checked.
Right. The one that's questionable is the perhaps the history that he was teaching was not conducive to what the Russian government would have liked.
Oh, interesting. Okay. And so that is a distinction that the State Department categorizes somebody as.
Yeah.
And then that sets in motion a set of resources and processes that can be used to advocate on behalf of that prisoner, basically.
We understand that the State Department is very reluctant to get into anything involving drugs, marijuana, or any kind of drugs. And as we know, our government up until this point has classified marijuana as a
Schedule 1.
Schedule 1, which is now looking to be changed. They contradicted that with the unlawful designation given to Brittany Griner.
Brittany Griner, WNBA basketball player, Olympian, arrested on a similar charge and fairly quickly classified as wrongfully detained and part of a prisoner swap.
Yes.
For Victor Boot, who's
Wow.
pretty hardcore criminal, at least the coverage that I read.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes. So they set a precedent at that point. The State Department set a precedent, and it's very clear that Mark is being held, was given that sentence because he's an American.
Sure.
They're not doing that to their own citizens.
Yeah, and that's an analysis that's fairly widespread, is that Putin has engaged in collecting prisoners as bargaining chips.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an age-old war tactic.
We'll be back to my conversation with Anne Fogel after this short break. A New Angle is proudly presented by First Security Bank, Blackfoot Communications, and the University of Montana College of Business. This show does not happen without these pillars of our community, and I'm so grateful for their support and encouragement. And speaking of support, have you checked out our new website yet? anewanglepodcast.com. There you can support our show directly with a variety of subscription options. Subscribers get access to bonus episodes, additional segments, writings, and other benefits. So check it out at anewanglepodcast.com.
Hey, this is Mark Moss from Tell Us Something, and you're listening to A New Angle.
Welcome back to A New Angle. I'm speaking with Anne Fogel about her brother Mark, who's been detained against his will in Russia since 2021. And so right now, you and your family are pushing, and it's more than you and your family, several members of Congress are pushing the State Department to classify Mark as wrongfully detained. Can you tell us about the status of that effort?
Our two senators from Montana have been amazing. Absolutely amazing. And the senators from Pennsylvania, as well as the majority of the Congress people from Pennsylvania as well.
Okay.
Which there are a number of.
Yeah.
And then including just an amazing bipartisan group of politicians, from Senator Cooney to Senator Cruz. I mean, really it has spanned the political divide, which is quite incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive in these times.
Yes, it's pretty impressive
people come
in
together
these times. Yes.
On any issue, let alone one with this many political dimensions to it.
Right. We've pushed. There's been a resolution passed, and then the Marc Fogel Act passed, which put a time restraint on the State Department to give information to Congress on why they're not designating.
So a bit of an ultimatum, like you either make this designation or tell us why you're not.
Yes,
because
exactly.
to date you've not been able to get an answer as to why.
They have not, even though Mark has signed every document of disclosure they have.
You're in talks with the likes of Mike McFaul and, as you said, Senators Tester and Daines. Do you have any opinion as to why he has not been designated as wrongfully detained yet?
I don't think that they want to open themselves more up to this marijuana issue.
Sure. Yeah, once it sort of sets in motion.
Even though the entire United States is in, we're now all in flux on this. It will be reclassed. The marijuana is legal in many parts of the country.
Gosh, you think it's the marijuana issue and not wanting another piece of conflict with Russia, or there's so many dimensions to this?
I don't know. I mean, I wake up in the middle of the night, wonder what is going on.
This is sort of a hall of mirrors that you're living in, and then to not be able to get straight answers from your own government has got to be really frustrating.
It's really maddening.
Yeah.
It's you can't. There is no plain speak. You can't just have the conversation. It has been truly one of the most frustrating endeavors I have been in. My sister's a business person in mergers and acquisitions.
She deals a lot with complexity.
She deals a lot with complexity, and she's just never seen anything like this.
Maybe describe, you said a lot of people have chipped in and contributed and sounded the alarm. Talk about and you also said that this is, sort of become your primary vocation at this point.
Yeah.
Describe the team you've put together with your sister and how you got, what is the sort of work that you all do?
My sister and I, and there are a whole cadre of lawyers that have been amazing.
Mm-hmm.
There are lawyers in Russia that are working pro bono. There are lawyers in the United States also working pro bono. We have a lobbyist who is from Western Pennsylvania, represents the university that my brother went to school at.
Okay.
And she has just been an absolute dynamo, and including Marc's students. Marc's former students have been incredible. He has, 38 years of former students, and they have really come out of the woodwork and do an amazing array of vocations.
Mm-hmm.
So last week I was in California for the screening of Did You Forget Mr. Fogel?
Yeah, short film.
Short film, 15-minute documentary made by actually the brother of my brother's student.
Okay.
Yeah. This filmmaker, Max Karpman, his father is Ukrainian, his mother is Russian.
Mm.
They were at the Anglo-American school, he and his sister Masha, and they left Russia when Crimea was invaded.
Okay. 2014?
Yes.
Yeah.
And they came back to the United States. Masha had my brother for history, but she did not play on his softball team, which is like a whole other, like everyone that's played on his softball teams has also just been pretty incredible.
Touched by him in some way.
Yeah. Everyone from Malaysia to Russia to Mexico. It's just crazy. The documentary was made by students for him, which I think is really going to be the saving of his life.
Mention the title again, so if folks want to find it on YouTube, they can search for it.
Did You Forget Mr. Fogel?
Yeah, it's a beautiful film, powerful film. So congrats to all involved.
Mm-hmm.
Is this primarily an awareness game at this point? I mean, you're working the legal angles.
It's a pressure campaign. It's a pressure campaign. Pennsylvania is a battleground state.
Yeah.
My brother's from, up and owns a house there.
Mm-hmm.
I really wish that President Biden would do the right thing and have him designated. His contributions far, far exceed any of the law. He doesn't have a criminal record. I mean, I don't.
Yeah, and that has to be such fraught emotional terrain for you to think of, the Brittany Griner case and seeing her come home. It's a wonderful thing to see her come home.
Yeah, it's a wonderful thing to see her come home. I wish she would say his name.
Yeah.
I wish the First Lady is the teacher. Marc genuinely has touched thousands of lives, and in an area where he has brought greater understanding to the political realm. So I really want to see this administration do the right thing. I'm in an unfortunate position to. He is my number one issue now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Getting my brother home is my number one issue.
So what's the mechanism? Like how do people actually contact the White House?
The best way to contact them is through email.
Okay. And I'm seeing here on the White House website, whitehouse.gov, if you just go whitehouse.gov/contact, there's a contact form. It says that's the fastest way to contact the White House. And you're right, Pennsylvania is a battleground state, so in some ways that your divisive political time can work in your favor. I certainly hope it does.
It's strange to be in a position where the thing that you need to happen feels like it's counter to the broader the good of the country. I've
known you and your family a while, and one an impression I've always gotten from all of you is a sort of a fierce positivity. And how do you endure and not get cynical in the face of what you and your family have been experiencing?
I'm challenged right now.
Yeah.
I am genuinely challenged. Walking my dogs is keeping me sane. Yeah. And certainly the balsam root and the lupin and the arnica. I spend as much time as I can outside.
Well, and I'm grateful that you would come on the show, tell us about your brother. Anything else you want to say about your brother before we close?
He is shiny as hell.
Yeah.
He's an extraordinary human, and he does not deserve to be there.
Just looking at a photo of him, I mean, I've never met your brother, but looking at one photo online, you can just sort of feel the energy that comes out of that human. Yeah, he's extremely positive. So, Anne, thanks for coming here and sharing the story. And thanks for working tirelessly for what's right. Thanks for listening to A New Angle. If you like what we do and want to support us directly, please consider a subscription at anewanglepodcast.com. A New Angle is recorded at Studio 49, a generous gift from UM alums Michelle and Lauren Hansen. Our presenting sponsors are First Security Bank, Blackfoot Communications, and the University of Montana College of Business. Keely Larson is our producer. Maddie Jordan is our production assistant. VTO, Jeff Ament, and John Wicks made our music, and Jeff Meese is our master of all things sound. Thanks a lot, and see you next time.